Now everybody's learning how.
You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. Today we're asking the question, what were they thinking anyway? And we want to do this because we want to let those of you in HOAs know you're not alone in terms of, it may seem like your association is the only one that just puts together these just awful, unruly rules and regulations.
Or with best intentions, you draft the most carefully considered rules and regulations you can come up with, and your members are still unhappy.
Yeah. And so give us a call today, 651-289-4488. We do have someone on line one right now. We have Sarah on line one. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for taking my call.
So you have an issue, it says, on signage?
Well, I just had a comment that I wanted to make. And actually, I've listened to a couple of your shows recently because I've been interested in, potential legislation, but also just about how rules are made in HOAs because I happen to live in one. And the story about the little Yorkie really tugged at my heart because I love my dog very much. And
Sure.
I was listening to that, and it reminded me of something that I've been thinking about as I've been listening to the shows, and that is that, the rules that are being made in this HOA are really no different than any small town that people choose to live in. And someone can choose, to live in a rural situation or to choose to live in a town. And in this case, I admit I wish the signs could be left up so that the dog could be found. I thought your comments were interesting, but it reminded me of where I used to live, which was in a small town in Northern California. And in that town, there were very, very strict rules that the citizens had voted on because they didn't want any neon signs, they didn't want anything plastic, they didn't want anything with bright colors because it was a rural community. There were some businesses that actually took legal action to contest that, one of which was a very well-known fast food company that wanted to put up a high, bright...
Well, all fast food companies do
was
have
it kind of
the neon.
art-shaped? Was it art-shaped? Okay.
Right, and their argument was, hey, this is our reputation, this is our trademark,
Sure.
we want to be able to do this. It was not allowed to happen because the judge ruled that this community had a right to make rules to govern how it wanted, how people wanted to live in that community. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the same thing that happens in an HOA. And it seems that a lot of people think of HOAs as these sort of mean organizations that tell them what to do, when in reality, to me, the community that I live in is no different. I live in a metropolitan area now, but I used to live in a small town in a rural area. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. The people in that community are coming together and they're voting on how they want their community to be.
So you're okay with the idea that the association, that the homeowners get together and they decide and say, these are the rules that we want to have because this is important to us?
Yeah, and for me, I admit, I would want to be able to post signs if my dog were missing, and I like the comment that you made about having that be an exception to the rule of not having signs be able to be posted. But that's something that this HOA can vote on, just like people in a town vote and decide what they want to have. And I don't always like all the rules of the community that I live in now, and I didn't necessarily like all the laws of the community the town that I lived in California. But as a citizen, I think that's pretty normal. All of us have, there's nothing that we're always going to agree with completely in any community that we live in. We have people with different political viewpoints, people who think it should go one way, people who think it should go another, but that's what we vote for. And if we don't like how things are going, we can choose to run for office or attend the meetings and participate.
There you go.
And not everybody's going to always agree, are they?
No, they're not. And I guess the only other thing is, one of the things that I've been a question that I have for you guys is, if an HOA is a corporation, maybe that's one of the reasons why people think of them as sort of an evil thing, when in reality it is just, I'm a member of my HOA, just like all my neighbors are, and that's all it is. It's just an organization, just like living in a town. And the question that I have is the reason it's incorporated because it already exists where a municipality already is? So you can't have another town on top of a town that already exists. And that was something I was curious about. But anyway, thanks for taking my
Thanks
comments.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling, Sarah.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, and thanks for the topic. I enjoy it.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess it really gets down to this, I think, Tony, and that is, how do you view your neighbors around you? You know, and do you go through life already predisposed with the idea that nobody's going to ever agree with you, everybody's always going to be contrary, or do you have an idea that, you know what, I think this is in the case of this little Yorkie, and someone says, I think there needs to be an exception to the rule.
Sure.
Someone would come forward and say, you know what, I think we can figure out a way around this.
That's right. That's right. Let's discuss it. Let's look at other options. Let's come to a consensus. What I hear in our daily business is the person that has an issue, and a issue very important to them, that does try and participate in the process, but doesn't find support for their opinion. A lot of times, those are the people that get really worked up and really on the warpath against HOAs in general because they didn't get what they wanted in their homeowners association. I don't think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and they would be probably some of the first, if they were in power, to say that, well, now that I can make the rule, this is the way it's going to be. and
there you go.
And that's what people don't like.
That's right.
I just wish there was probably a little bit more of an understanding with folks, giving a little bit of leeway, you know, giving people the benefit of the doubt and saying, you know what, I think I can work with the board. They're not going to be just awful and say no because the rule is the rule. And
but at least you shouldn't expect that. You shouldn't assume that. And I've said this to boards before that have had clashes either with members or among the board itself. You have to get in a place where you put the principles before the personalities. And you talk about it often as either you're operating a business in a community or you're operating on emotion. And I'm kind of saying the same thing. The principle is we have to operate this community to the best of our ability and for the benefit of all the members. So let's stick to that principle and let's set the personalities aside. And, you know, maybe that guy I don't like that lives up the street does come up with a good idea once in a while. Yeah.
So guiding principles, key to good rules and regulations. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. We need to take a break. When we come back, though, let's begin with some stupid laws still on the books when we ask just what were they thinking anyway, right here on Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.